Yes, he's back. The goddess. Look at the goddess there. I mean, he's got a shirt on today, which is that usually doesn't happen. He walks around with a shirt on, and I do not blame him at all. What are you, 65 years old?
Next month, God willing.
He'll be 65 years old, and he's built like a 25-year-old. The great Mark Puttenvink. For people that don't know, Mark is a fitness trainer. Patriot Training Systems is his company. He trains anywhere from military people to mothers at home, or he's trained the New York Rangers, worked for the New England Patriots up at West Point. West Point, you were doing the boxing stuff, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Man of many skills. How are you doing? How's your weekend?
Good. Will and I met yesterday. We did that tank pull. So it was a tank pull for veterans charities.
Oh, really? You actually pulled a tank?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of misleading because the tank is, they got tracks, so they have to be mechanized to move. So it's on a flatbed. So you're actually pulling the truck.
Oh.
So they have a set distance, and whoever can pull it, your team, in that set distance in the fastest time wins.
How many guys?
You did well. You can have up to 20 in your team.
Is that right? How many guys in your team?
I guess 20. So what I did was I got Will. He's a pretty strong guy. And then Friday nights I teach this boxing class down in Fort Lee, and it's actually in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. So one of my students owns a gym, Korean dude, great guy, Gilbert. So he brought along like 6 just monster bodybuilding dudes and a couple girls that were totally jacked. So I was like the petite princess pulling on this thing with all these monsters, but it was fun. It was a good
all right. Right off the bat here, one of our favorite followers, Barry Shelley, loved both your workout videos this morning, but have to admit, Mark outdid you, Tom. His feet never touched the ground during his workout. I didn't see yours. I got to go back and watch yours.
Yeah, I was doing, I call them walking pull-ups. So like as you're doing your pull-up, you bicycle your legs up. And bicycle.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting your core at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of like this kind of circling and tapping, kind of 2 different things going on.
Sure.
At the same time.
I did. I got the kettlebell video today. I've really gotten into the kettlebells, man. They rip you up good.
Oh, I love them. They're great. They're really, really very dynamic, and they're also, you can do so many different things with them. They're great.
Isn't it true? Like your whole body, you're getting an aerobic workout from it. Oh man!
If you go on YouTube, there's a guy, Pavel. He's a Russian. Just put in Pavel and kettlebell. He's got a whole bunch of really cool stuff. Oh. And he talks about the science behind it all.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Yeah, your whole body though, right? You get everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're tremendous. Yeah.
Nice. You don't run, do you? Your knees are nothing.
Yeah, my knees are pretty banged up. I skip rope, which I can do.
That's right.
And that really is a lot of cardio. And like you, when I'm doing my workout, it's kind of dynamic. So the heart rate gets jacked up. And I even before my knees, like for boxing and stuff, I never really enjoyed running. I don't know.
I know. I never liked running either.
I could just drive there.
Remember Roger Nielsen, the great coach?
Of course,
him,
yeah.
So when I was in junior, as 15-year-old, I was drafted by the Peterborough Petes, and Roger Nielsen was coaching. And I know back then, I didn't know about working out. I don't know if anybody knew about working out. Roger did. So he sent me a training program. So it's the first time I started working out with Roger. And I used to run around, like we had the gravel roads on the farm. Right. And I'd run around, like the big, it's not a block really, it's miles. It's farm country. And I started getting shin splints.
Yep.
And I didn't know what shin splints were. I'm just getting this pound of really burning right in my shins. So what the doctor says, you get shin splints. And I guess you need to stretch more, right? Isn't that?
No. So what happens is on the front of your shin, you have a sheath. It's called the anterior tibialis.
Right.
And it gets inflamed from the pounding.
Oh.
So if you do get shin splints, the best remedy for that is to go on an incline, put it as high as you can, and walk and really slow. Because what it does, it stretches out that sheath. So your foot has it's called plantar flexed.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, dorsiflexed. So up is dorsiflexed. So you're really stretching that sheath.
Oh, okay.
And it will relieve the pain. And it's also good if you're going to do a lot of running, especially on hard pavement, to put that into your workout as a maintenance or preventative measure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's funny too. It's the old farm country. So we come home from the doctor. Doctor says you get shin splints. Parents say, "Well, what are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, I get back out there and run." Right. That's what we did on the farm. Yeah. My father, I know I've talked about this before, but he didn't really talk about it. But he was just the life he led. The cows had to get milked every day, twice a day. My father and grandfather. There was no excuses. Didn't matter what happened to him. Never forget. My father was running in the rain one day, and the dog was all excited. Saw him. The dog got caught up in his feet. My father went flying, knocked himself out cold. I got up out of the rain. He wasn't out for a while. Went back in the house, laid down for a little bit. Had to go back and milk cows later on. I mean, there's no, there's just no option.
real good friend of mine, Jeff Remo, tremendous athlete. He's a big guy like you. In high school, he was like 6'2", 225. And he signed a letter of intent to play quarterback at Pitt right after Dan Marino. And then a few weeks later, he got drafted, I think it was a high draft pick in Major League Baseball by the Chicago Cubs. And that was really his first sport that he loved. So he signed with the Cubs. But we were always very competitive. And I couldn't keep up with him in the weight room because he's a big dude, right? So one day we're in the gym and I saw a jump rope. I'm like, all right, I got you, Jeff. I got you. Now he had played, so he got injured playing baseball. He injured his eye, but he was young enough that he still went down and played Division I quarterback at UTEP, University of Texas El Paso. Tremendous athlete. So I see the rope and I say, hey, we call each other coach. I go, hey, coach, check this out. I grab the rope and I start skipping and doing all my stuff. Yeah. He calls me Punchy. He goes, Punchy, give me the rope. So I give him the rope. And he starts doing the same thing. I go, come on.
Oh, yeah.
His quarterback coach down at UTEP had them skip rope for athleticism and agility and conditioning.
Right.
So
that's cool.
He still won.
So most people that are going to go through life will never be in a situation where they need to defend themselves, or it's maybe it's not life threatening, maybe it is life threatening. But it's one of those things that if you don't train for that, if you're not aware, if you don't have that situational awareness, if it ever does happen, you're like, I don't know what to do, right? And it's almost like by training, I believe, and I think you do too, by training, I know you do because we've talked about this, by training for those kind of things, you end up avoiding it because you don't have to prove to yourself that you can do it. You know you can handle it. Therefore, you don't escalate a situation and potentially get yourself in trouble. So why don't we talk about that a little bit, about situational awareness and what you need to be looking for?
Sure. So the first concept, and it's the most vital one, really, is you will win 100% of every assault if you avoid it. And that's the number one concept you have to get. So in order of importance, it's avoidance is number one. And for some reason, if you can't avoid, the second one is escape. Okay? If you can't avoid the situation, get out of there. The third one would be to de-escalate. We'll talk about that in detail a little bit, but de-escalation is verbal judo. Say, hey, listen, man, here's my wallet. Take it. What else you need? Whatever. And then the last one, if none of those three work, if you can't avoid it, you can't escape, and de-escalation is not working, then you have to fight. You have to physically confront that person. Now, that's easier said than done, obviously, because what happens, Tom, when you are assaulted or about to be assaulted, you get the fight or flight reflex, and there's a huge adrenaline dump. And with that adrenaline dump, a whole bunch of nasty things happen to you. One is all the blood rushes from your hands and arms into your internal organs. It's nature's way of protecting your internal organs. So you lose fine motor skills. So anything you do in a sense of defending yourself would have to be a gross motor skill, big, large movements to get you out of there. Secondly, you may get auditory exclusion where you can't hear what's going on. You will get tunnel vision. I think you and I talked about this. Yeah. And there are training methodologies to reduce the effects of all that adrenaline dump. And that's what the military uses. The SEALs in particular, they do something called SIT, stress inoculation training, where they run these scenarios 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row. They want to kind of dampen that adrenaline dump that you get. And also, there's something that happens when you're in a fight or flight mode. Your cognitive, or the frontal cortex of your brain, shuts down. You go right to the limbic, or the middle of the brain. We'll call it the wild brain. Okay, so your cognitive, your reasoning, your ability to read and react is gone. You're strictly working on your subconscious, your limbic brain, your wild brain. So all of your training, and this is what we do with law enforcement in particular, in the military to a certain extent, when we run training and defending, say if it's against a knife or whatever, it's very basic skills that we reach that level of unconscious competence that we spoke about last week. So that the two important things are threat recognition, being able to recognize the threat, and then having an immediate subconscious response to that threat. Yeah. Now, go ahead, Tom.
Well, it's interesting listening to you talk. I think back to some of the fights I got in when I played. It's like you can watch them on YouTube now, and it's funny because you talk about the frontal cortex or whatever, just shutting down. Yeah. I can never usually even remember the fight until I watched it. I'm going, really? I was fighting Martin McSorley one, and he's punching me in the head. And it's so funny that you're thinking to yourself, I don't remember getting punched, but obviously it was getting punched. So
when the hockey fights I would have, because I'm so small, it was definitely fight or flight.
Yeah.
And then if I fought, if I lost or I won or it was a tie, getting to the bench, the penalty bench, I would start to shake. I'm thinking, what am I, a baby?
Yeah.
No, that's the adrenaline dump. At the time, I didn't know it. But yeah, my feet were shaking, my hands were shaking. I'm thinking, come on, settle down. It's just a little fight. But that's that adrenaline dump. And again, through training, you can start to diminish that effect.
And it is funny, right? Because so when I fought, I was more of a mad fighter. So somebody would happen, somebody do some of my teammates, we fight, go real hard, throw as many right hand punches as you can, hold on. Yeah. You're getting punched. The real good fighters, though, they weren't like that. They would continue on. Like I would have my adrenaline rush, get in the fight. Okay, it lasted for a little while, but then you're holding on. But it's funny, you see those guys that are really good, like the old Darren Langdons and those kind of guys. Like they would strategize, and everything. And I'm thinking, he said to me one time he was fighting Bob Probert. And Bob Probert, as people don't know, was maybe the baddest hockey player that's ever played as far as fighting. I mean, that good way he was a fighter. And he said one time, he says he could hear Bob Probert breathing hard and he knew he had him. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I was fighting Bob Probert. I wasn't concentrating on Bob Probert.
You're just trying to survive.
Right.
And we're getting off topic a little bit, but I want to ask you about Siggy. I mean, that guy could fight. What do you weigh? About $175? Eddie Johnson.
Who's that, Langdon?
No, Eddie Johnson.
Oh, Eddie Johnson. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, yeah. He was tough. And he was the kind of guy too, like that. He was smart. He fought guys and bigger than him, and strategy and everything. He didn't just fight for 15 seconds and then hold on.
Another smaller player, but was tremendous, was Georgie McPhee.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
Yeah,
incredible.
I ran into Bobby Hoffmeyer because he was at the time one of the scouts pro scout for New Jersey. We got to talking about fighting, and he said, I guess he played with George. Where did they play? Anyhow, they played together. Yeah. And he said, if you walked into a party or a room and it was all these guys, the first guy you'd pick is George because he's not very intimidating looking.
Oh, totally.
And it'd be a huge mistake.
I think I've told a story. I played against him in college. He was a Bowling Green. I was in Northern Michigan.
Hobie Baker.
And he was a Hobie Baker winner and all that. But we were always going at it. And I'm thinking, who is this little guy? Because I thought I was the baddest guy on the planet, right? In college hockey, I fight this much. So, and then he went down to the minors. He was also with the Rangers, came up to play against the Islanders. He squared off with Bob Nystrom, who was one of the top fighters in the league. So I jumped in because I played against George. I'm thinking, this guy's going to get killed. He doesn't know who Bob Nystrom is or something. I thought he was unaware. So I stepped in and broke it up, and he was mad at me. George was screaming at me, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, I just saved your life. I said, saying to him. So they went in the penalty box, got out again, went back at it, and the two of them went at it. It was a great fight. I don't think either one of them really won. It was just a fantastic fight. And I'm thinking, thank God I didn't fight George in college.
Well, I mean, even a good friend, I haven't seen him in a while, but a good friend of mine, Gary Howlett. I mean,
oh yeah.
Talking about a little guy who was very dangerous out there.
Yeah, good. All right, so the situational awareness then. So
go ahead. So
the cat first is you try to avoid it. You try to get away, try to talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you though, the male ego. Mm-hmm. The male ego. So again, I guess if you've trained enough, then you know that you're tough enough. You know you're strong enough. You don't have to prove it, right? Because that's what happens when a confrontation happens. If you feel like, okay, I'm going to run away, you think, oh God, you're going to regret it later. I ran away from a fight.
Right.
But I guess if you've trained yourself, you're doing the right thing and that you know how to handle it.
Yeah. So the most dangerous men on the planet that I know are very quiet, unassuming.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You have social violence or you have antisocial violence. Antisocial violence is generally perpetrated by a stranger more often than not. Somebody comes up, they put a knife in your back, say, give me your wallet. Or they come at you. Maybe there's two of them. Maybe there's multiple attackers. That's antisocial violence. That's the point where you've got to just fight but you got to fight as your life depends upon it.
Yeah.
Okay. Social violence is that, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
You bump into a guy in a bar, hey man, and you go out. So the Tim Larkin, who's out in Vegas, he's got a company called Target Focus Training. And he says, social violence rule is in 3 days, if you're either incarcerated, hospitalized, or dead, it's not worth it. And the male ego is very tough to push to the side.
Yeah.
Really is. But like I said, the most dangerous people I know.
Yeah.
And this brings me to the de-escalation part of it. So we go avoid, escape, de-escalate, fight. The de-escalation kind of bifurcates into two different separate categories. One is when you're working, well, not working, when you're confronted by a criminal he has intent. All right. It's really difficult to de-escalate. Maybe you can say, here's my wallet, we're done, and hope that de-escalates the situation. It can also, now it will work if it's another civilian and you bump into him on the sidewalk and he's having a horrifically bad day. Just lost his job, his wife just filed for divorce, car won't start, and he's a Jets fan like I am. So he's having a bad day, right? That's when you say, hey, brother, listen, man, it looks like you're having a bad day. I hope things work out. And maybe the guy might say, sorry, I'm being an idiot, man. I apologize. Then there's this one. It's a Christmas party, and a female wanders off into the kitchen of the office or whatever, and here comes Joe, and he's absolutely hammered. He's now turned into Antichrist, and he's trying to get with her. Right.
Yeah.
That's when de-escalation is probably not going to work for her. Right. Where she says, hey, it's a kind of again, this takes some mindset and it takes some training, but that's maybe when she wants to say, and she has to read that threat. And again, it's the threat recognition and it's the proper response time. Is say, okay, and start to unbutton her blouse. When he moves in, boom, palm strike right to his face and say, stop. That's enough. That may do it. And that's another concept that women in particular are, men aren't, but women are brought up from a very early age to be nice. Thank God. Women are great. They're maternal. It can work against them. And here's a perfect scenario. So you're in the bottom of a parking deck. It's kind of not well lit. And you're fumbling with your keys. You got 1,000 bags in your hands. And you see this sketchy guy starts approaching. And he says, hey, can I give you a hand? Most women would either be submissive or partially submissive and allow that person to close the gap.
Yeah.
All right. Not that stick length, they're closing the gap and on top of her. Where what she's supposed to do is push aside the niceness, put her hand up, say, stop, I got this. It's okay. You need to leave. Right. And most perpetrators will hear that message because if they're a professional criminal, they, so predators, they hunt the perimeter of the herd. Because that's where the weak and the ill are. The further in they go, the stronger it becomes. So the predator is going to see that this woman is strong and
let's go someplace else. Yeah,
he'll move on down the street.
Here's the thing that's happening a lot in New York City here now. People just getting randomly punched.
Okay.
And I think to myself, now listen, sometimes you just can't avoid it, right? But that's where like you've talked before about being aware of your surroundings, right?
So here's what I want to. This is a perfect segue into what I want to talk about. So we have resources. And the first one is our awareness and our radar. Okay. The second one, and this is really key, is what type of body language we portray.
Yeah.
1981, there were two sociologists, Grayson and I forget the other researcher's name, but they did a study. They took a video camera, they set it up on a very busy intersection in New York City, and for 3 days in a row, they just filmed or videotaped 3 hours of just pedestrian traffic. They took that 9 hours of video, they went into the penal system, and they accumulated about a dozen of the most violent criminals they could find. And they said, we want you to watch these videos and fill out who you would attack and who you would avoid. And across the board, Tom, the people they would attack, and this is before cell phones, before TechNet, came into play, people walking, staring at the phone. They identified those people to attack where they walked looking down at their feet, would shuffle, right? They would avoid. So if you're walking at me, I would step over to the side to allow you to go through. Those were across the board, those were the people they would attack. The people they avoided, erect spine, head on a swivel, just like playing D, confident stride. They avoided those people. So your body language is a really, for me to sit here and teach people about situational awareness, which encompasses a lot, even the threat recognition. So I'm certified as a threat recognition, whatever, for the military and LEO. In other words, how to identify if somebody's carrying contraband or a handgun. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, disciplinary actions like the carotid pulsing, things that a perpetrator can't control because it's a physical reaction to their chemical dump. But before getting into all that, it's very simple. Walk straight, walk with a purpose, have your head on a swivel, be aware. Okay, those are resources. And then the third one, which is really, really critical, is your instincts. How many times have you heard somebody say, looking back upon it now, that guy did look a little sketchy?
Yeah.
No, you know what? You knew it then. You chose to ignore your intuition.
Right. And we're not saying that people have to walk around being paranoid and thinking everybody's going to hurt them, but it is right. It's just looking and saying, okay, that guy just doesn't look right. Just in your mind, you don't have to react to it. He doesn't look right. I'm going to make sure that I'm aware when I'm walking by him, right?
There's a reason, Tom, that we've all, and everybody we're talking to now is here. Because in our DNA, we have the ability to subconsciously recognize threats, So it's in our DNA, or we never would have survived as a species if we couldn't, because we're not really built to fight nature. We're going to outthink nature. You're going up against a woolly mammoth, you're not going to come out in a good position unless you figure out how to build a spear and kill him. And the thing about criminal activity is they need three things. They need the intent, they need the opportunity, and lastly, they need the ability. So here's what people need to think about. The intent is in their head. The opportunity is kind of you allow it.
Yeah, totally.
And then the ability to do it is furtherance of your giving them the opportunity and presenting. Right. So, if I'm walking down the street in New York City and it's a quiet street and I see 2 or 3 dudes walking down the other side, they stop and they start to communicate. I know that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
I get out of there. All right. And here's the other part of it, and talk about ego. It's very difficult not to sometimes think, I'm going to teach this dude a lesson.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
not your job. And you know what? On the street or in a hallway or in an elevator, just get out of there or fight to your death, but don't stick around for the second round.
Yeah. What I think too, is like if you're in that situation, let's say you're in an elevator and you're starting to worry about the guy or whatever. I find to myself that like if I initiate a conversation with him, but I'm doing it forcefully, not forcing him to do something, but showing him that I'm a strong man. Yeah. Like, hey, how you doing today, bud? Like it's doing, but I've got something myself, right? So disarm him.
So again, not everybody's as big as Tom, but if you carry yourself with a certain presence, again, they're going to avoid you. The pre-attack cues too. So if you see a potential, what you think might be, so we don't look at one thing, we look at a cluster of cues, and one of them is viewing and assessing. They may do a target glance, like they look at your handbag. We call that a target glance.
Yeah.
All right.
I noticed too, like it's a foot movement too, right? So some guy turns to face you, and it's like staggering his feet, like he's getting ready to punch you or something.
People's feet always point toward the direction, and it's kind of common sense, but the direction of their attention. And the second thing they're doing, besides viewing you up, maybe looking for your wallet or where your cell phone is, or looking at their handbag, they're scanning because they don't want to get arrested. So they're looking for any law enforcement, or they're also planning their escape route.
Yeah.
Once they attack you, they need an escape route. And then the third pre-attack cue is closing. So when those 3 guys start walking toward me across the street, I know it's on. I get out of there.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
So again, but just to be clear with everybody too, I just to repeat, we said this at the start, but we're not, like most people will never have to use these skills. No. But I think the reason why you won't have to use them if you're smart, because you are making yourself aware, you are carrying yourself a certain way in certain situations.
Self-defense, and I don't even like that term self-defense because that means you're already being attacked.
Yeah.
But let's use the term self-defense. That cannot ever replace awareness.
Yeah.
All right. And no one can ever protect yourself better than you. You have to become your own personal security detail.
Yeah. Well, that's true, right? Because if people say, well, and the police will take care of me. Well, the police may not be there for a few minutes, right? No. What's going to happen is probably going to be done by the time the police get there.
Yeah, the average response to a 911 call is, I think, 20 to 30 minutes.
It is really? 20 or 30 minutes?
20 to 30 minutes. But by the time dispatch gets it and they roll, that's the average. So this is something that Tier 1, so SEALs and SAS guys and all those guys, they have mindset. It's called the vital pyramid. And at the bottom of that pyramid is their mindset. And that for a civilian is the most important thing, because you have to, I was having this conversation with Beth over dinner the other night. Probably wasn't the time to say, most people don't understand what it's like to stick a knife and slash and have their person's entrails come out. And she was just and she looked at me like, what's wrong with you? Apparently a lot. But anyhow, see, but beyond that, you need that mindset to say, what are my most valuable things in life? My spouse, my children, my family. I need to save me so they don't lose me. And that's the mindset. You have to be able to be willing to stick your finger in a guy's eye socket and rip it.
Yeah.
It sounds horrific, but you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? Here, a good friend of mine, Lee Morrison, he's an incredible guy. And he said, I hate violence, but I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
And if you attack me, you'll be telling your grandkids about that day.
My old junior, no, it was my college coach said to me, Tom, I don't want you fighting. If you're going to fight, though, you need to punch first.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And that's it. So like you said, you're trying to do everything you can to avoid the fight. But once you know that it's on, you got to fight for your life. Right. Yeah.
So it's the mindset. And then you have tactics, which is more, again, looking at your escape route or grabbing an improvised weapon. Say, if you are in a setting where you could grab a blunt instrument for an impact weapon, or if there's a bladed a knife or something. So that's your tactics and then skills. And that's where you do need some training, learning how to throw, a hammer fist to someone's carotid. Very simple gross motor skills. And then the last one's your tools. And this is more for the military weapons.
Right.
That's the
I know. Right. An old teammate of mine, Jim Thompson, good guy. We did a show with him. And he was talking about how he's been through a lot of stuff in his life, the drugs and alcohol and everything. Yeah. He's got a young family. And he was talking about how when he goes to a restaurant, he's not paranoid or anything like that, but he makes sure he sits with his back to the wall so he can see all the entrances and everything. Right. If somebody's coming, so he feels like he's responsible for his family. They're all sitting there with him. So if he's not aware, if he's got his back to the room, he can't see what's going on behind him. So he makes sure he sits. And he doesn't make a big deal about it. He doesn't tell his kids he's doing it, but he does that as a practice. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
He's his family's personal security detail. Now, there's another process called KIM. It's an acronym for Keep in Mind Training. So you can do various variations. You could take a sheet of paper and have somebody draw a whole bunch of objects, and you get 30 seconds to look at it, you put it down, and then someone's going to ask you questions. And what's really important about that, I generally speaking, when I do a presentation, as soon as everybody sits down, I'll say, all right, close your eyes. And I'll look at, I'll say, you got a name tag. Tom, where's the fire extinguisher in this room?
Yeah, I was going to say about the escapes, the fire escapes.
How many, here, I did one in a gym, and we were in a little training area with squat racks and everything. And I said, okay, so we got active shooter, or better yet, we have a fire. How many escape routes? And they go, well, 2, because there's a door there and there's a door there. I said, no, there's 3. Yeah, how about go through the T-bar ceiling and over the wall? Climb up the squat rack. So you need to start to understand that it's not, you have to use that frontal cortex and before you use the limbic. And
is that true? Like for me now, when I go into a movie theater, I haven't been in a movie theater in a long time, or I'm on a plane and they talk about, I really make sure I'm looking and saying, like, they're going to flight attendants going through their whole routine, talking about the exits and everything like that. I make sure I know how many rows from where I'm sitting, because the worst case scenario, if the plane gets filled full of smoke or whatever, you need to know where those exits are, right?
Much like if you remember when we did the tactical day, I don't know if you remember, we had the obstacles up. And we kind of split up and we, pop. But if it was a street scenario right down the middle of the street, we call that the fatal funnel.
Right.
And it's the same thing if you're in a restaurant. Most deaths occur in a fire.
Yeah.
Front door. Because everybody only knows that egress and entrance. So they'll find the bodies piled up. They call it the fatal funnel. And this is just for everybody to remember. If you're in a restaurant, and there's a situation where there's a fire or unfortunately an active shooter, which is a possibility nowadays, the kitchen is the best place to leave. It's big. It's got multiple areas of entry and exit because of deliveries. So avoid that front door where you came through, because that's what we call the fatal funnel.
It's true. It is true. Like when you've thought about it, then you're not as much panic if it does happen, right? Because you've thought the process through. You're still your adrenaline's still going to be pumping.
Again, that's the threat recognition and having a proper response to it. And that's a little bit of pre-planning. So when you sit down in a restaurant, know where the kitchen is. Right. Know where all the exits are. Where's the fire extinguisher?
Okay, very, very important question here before we finish up. Did you see my shrimp pizza that I made yesterday?
I was actually salivating looking at that.
Man, I was surprised. I just came up with the idea for the shrimp pizza. I thought what I had, and I threw it together. I didn't know how it was going to taste, but it's like unbelievable. Wow, it's
good stuff. Good stuff.
You're a cook too, right? You like cooking?
Yeah, I make dinner every night. Yeah, I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I mean, like
What'd you make last night?
Last night we had what did we have last night? Just chicken, but I get the organic chicken on the bone.
Right.
And I made a kale salad. It was just a very basic dinner, but chicken, grilled chicken, kale salad, and sweet potato.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I've gotten back into. I got away from regular potatoes because I thought,
Right.
but I didn't. I misled myself. I thought it was more fat in potato, but there's no fat in a potato at all. It's just all protein.
Yeah, baked potato's fine. That's what you put on it. Don't put sour cream.
Well, that's the thing. So I make it up into French fries, and I do it in my air fryer now. So I don't have any fat in that at all. Yeah.
I sometimes make sweet potato chips. I slice them really thin, put them on a baking pan, a little salt, pepper, olive oil in the oven, low and slow for about an hour or so, and they're great.
Yeah, definitely.
It's easy.
Do you make homemade pizza?
I haven't in a while, and the reason is that Beth is gluten. She can't have gluten. So I bought the gluten-free dough in the past, and it's awful. It's like cardboard.
Oh, you can get the cauliflower. Kevin Allen and I were talking about get the cauliflower pizza, right?
I'm gonna try that one. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Once again, everybody, Mark Puttenvink, PatriotTrainingsSystems.com. If you do need a trainer, he'll train you whatever it is you want to do. He can do it all. And he can even cook. He does it all. He does everything. So
I'll come by, I'll cook for you. We'll train. We'll do a little situational awareness where I jump out of behind the door or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. All right, again, guys, we had a great talk today about situational training and just being aware of your surroundings and everything. We do not want people to be walking around being paranoid or scared of everything. You got to live your life, but just be aware of things. That's all. Be aware of people walking by you, in a restaurant, in a whatever it is, know where the exits are.
Walk strong. Walk with a purpose. Don't look at your phone. Have your chest out, looking around, and they'll avoid you. Trust me.
Definitely. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.